Kate Mila-Falcha. Welcome to Irish Granny Helen. Welcome to all of my returning subscribers, some of you who've been with me for over 6 years. I'm really grateful. Thank you to anybody who's new. Thank you for choosing to watch. I think you'll find a wide variety of topics here. I try to find the nexus between spirituality, metaphysics, philosophy, and true crime. Okay, let's get down to, as my grandmother used to say, brass tacks. Oh, we're going to do a little visit back a year or so ago. And then we're going to talk about something that has not been really publicly discussed. I was shocked. I stumbled on it. My radar is always out for this topic. What am I talking about? The Pope. Now, just to be very clear, caveat at the beginning of this, I don't espouse any institutionalized belief system, but I do know a little bit about the Catholic Church. And I think that this Pope is a paradigm shifting individual. The fact that he's the first American Pope is significant. Now, why do you care? If we're not Catholic, why should we care? Because the Vatican is an enormous geopolitical force. Let me remind you of the Crusades, the Inquisition, the destruction of indigenous cultures in the New World. So when I see something like what we're going to talk about, I'm astounded, I'm a little bit delighted, and I'm hopeful, but cautious. So let's get into this, because this is really interesting. So go back a little bit, go back over a year. By the time you see this story will be almost 4 months old. I am recording it earlier for scheduling things going on in my life. And so this may not feel like a new story, but it really is. So Pope Francis died on April 21st of 2025. And his replacement was a gigantic global shock. Now, if you're not into religion or you're not interested in Catholicism, this may have just sort of registered in the background and moved on in your attention. But I invite you to redirect your attention, because something gigantic is going on globally and people are shook. So the new Pope, whose name is Robert Vost, and I know I'm mispronouncing it. He's an American. He's from Chicago. He's an Augustinian friar. He's a longtime cardinal. He spent decades serving the poor in Peru. He's always been a quiet advocate for the voiceless. He became Pope Leo XIV. This is very significant. He was signaling to the world his priorities in the Vatican. And this may escape most people. I didn't really realize this either. I thought, Pope Leo, that's an interesting choice. I wonder why, but I didn't really look into it. Because like I said, I'm not all that into Roman Catholicism. But let's look at why he named himself Pope Leo. Pope Leo XIII was the author of an encyclical called Rerum Novarum, which in Latin means rare news, new news. The Roman Catholic Church puts out these encyclicals. The Pope, it's like, I don't know, like a white letter, and it gets circulated amongst all the heads of all the dioceses on the globe. That's why it's an encyclical. It gets around. This particular one is a fundamental document on the church position on labor, capital as in, and the dignity of the working poor. And it's significant. Now, this is Pope Leo the 13th, the last Pope Leo. The new Pope Leo, by choosing that as his name, was signaling to the world his allegiance from day one, and his allegiance is with the poor and labor. He was very clearly not into the capitalists. So the billionaires and the trillionaires have discovered in the past year that his position is antithetical to theirs. So right before the anniversary of Pope Francis's death, Pope Leo sent a letter to the top 10 richest heads of the richest organizations in the world, the billionaire trillionaire group, the wealthiest individuals. Their names would be familiar to you, and I'm not naming them because as soon as they received this letter, they weaponized the lawyers. So early in July, Pope Leo sent this letter, and it began with this quote. Well, we'll get to the quote in a minute. First, let me tell you how it became public. So this had no fanfare. This wasn't sent out on the AP wires. This went only to these 10 individuals, sort of a private letter to each one. But it was leaked by a woman named Elise Vandermeer. Now, I have seen her name in different iterations. So we'll just stipulate that I understand that her name may be a little bit different in different publications. But Elise Vandermeer is a Brussels journalist who's followed the Vatican for 18 years. So she publishes what was said, and immediately it disappeared from the internet, which is probably why you haven't heard of it. I dig into international press, and I think that's why I found it. So then the legal threats began. I told you they weaponized the lawyers, and the threats went to news networks internationally, telling them don't publish it. But it's public now. We're going to talk about it, make it a little bit more public. And I'm not going to name names, as I said, but these are the ultra high worth individuals that together have $14 trillion. And I take such offense at this phrase, ultra high worth individuals. Are you really of higher worth? Are you really more valuable of an individual because of your bank account? That's offensive. So what was in this letter? Well, it was 41 paragraphs, so we're going to summarize. And it began with this fabulous quote from the book of James in the Bible, because it is the Pope, you know. Come now, you rich, weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you. Even before Dear John. I love it. So he then went on to present the work of 6 months of research. He formed a commission of economists, theologians, former development officials from organizations like the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, UNICEF, the World Bank. This was a shadow commission, quietly working behind the scenes. Nobody really knew about it. And what were they working on? Economic violence. Getting interested? So he sent this with a personal letter, and he attached the findings of the commission to his personal letter. And let's find out what they did for 6 months. What did they uncover? Well, in this findings that he sent are the details of specific labor practices in specific facilities in named countries. He didn't tiptoe around it. You, John Doe, in XYZ Corporation, in the country of, yeah, I'm talking to you. For example, in Bangladesh, laborers make less than $2 a day for companies whose CEO's personal wealth increases an average of 43% a year. Now, keep in mind, these are the top 10 richest heads of richest organizations, and their average increase per year, 43%. Then this commission cited algorithmic wage suppression. What does that mean? So I need to look that up. It outlines the documented proof of using AI-driven systems to predict the minimum wage in a given zip code for which a laborer will settle before looking for a job elsewhere. So they calculate with AI how little they can get away paying. And then the person, is weighing the distance to travel somewhere else, the cost to travel somewhere else, the lack of transportation, the desire to stay home with family, near family, all of that plays into it. And they itemized all of this. This way, if they do this, the company can offer the very least amount of money that a desperate worker will accept, making less than $2 a day. The commission cited the consolidation of farmland in sub-Saharan Africa by investment organizations connected to the individuals to whom the Pope's letter was sent. P.S. You guys are stealing all the land. It mentioned a scheme in 3 countries called a structured incentive. And these are payments in exchange for the weakening of labor protections in those 3 countries, preliminary to the signing of huge infrastructure contracts. So let me translate that for you. They're paying bribes to government officials to deregulate so they'll make more money. And the Pope's commission detailed who, what, how much. In this letter, the Pope did not call out only the obvious moral deficiency. He implicitly let the wealthy recipients know that by providing sourced evidence, that much of this itemized behavior was conduct that would constitute criminal liability in certain jurisdictions. So he didn't just say, this is a sin. He also said, depending on where you are, this is a crime. This is corruption and a moral wrong. The journalist who printed a summary of this document was warned with such haste that one of her sources said this: they, meaning the rich guys who got the letter, they move faster than I have ever seen anyone move. This is not a normal crisis communication. This is suppression on the part of the rich people. When asked directly, the Vatican did not deny sending it, but the Vatican also did not advertise sending it. They quietly sent it. End of discussion. On the first year anniversary of Pope Francis's death, there was a formal public comment made, and it said that the Pope was having ongoing private correspondence with global leaders on matters of moral and social concern, and it would be inappropriate to comment on the contents of private communication. I mean, he is pointedly not making this tabloid fare. However, the journalist, this woman, Elizabeth or whatever, she was clear that the letter was very obviously a papal gauntlet. He threw down the gauntlet. So the Pope's message was this, and this is how he ended this itemized list of terrible things that they were doing for to people, labor, globally, to get rich, and to the environment too. So what the Pope concluded was the entire weight of Roman Catholicism all of the members, the ordinary everyday people who go to the church down the street, right? The clergy, every priest, every nun, every deacon, cardinal, bishop, archbishop, all of them. All the institutions, the hospitals, the foundations, the schools, and they have a lot of higher educational schools. They were going to be ordered by the Pope, who, when the Pope talks about dogma and doctrine, he is infallible. So if the Pope says, this is what we're going to do, God told me, they sit up and pay attention, or they're supposed to. That all of these were going to join together in a phase of prophetic witness, which is, what does that mean? They've been put on blast, these rich people, that the Catholics of the world globally, I think it's 1.4 billion people and huge amounts of money, are now standing up and pushing back. There will be a sustained public, liturgically integrated campaign of moral accountability directed at the structures of extreme wealth every Sunday in every diocese in the world. He's putting these rich people on blast. So what does that mean? He has told every clergy member and every Catholic in the world, what you see here is a moral wrong. God is most displeased. These are our fellow human beings, and we are now uniting and standing up in support of them and push back against this terrible love of money, which is the greatest sin. And every Sunday from now on, every Sunday, every preacher in the Catholic Church who gets up on a pulpit to say something must talk about that, must call out the wrong, must name names, must discuss the moral implications and the social effects. Must. So the Pope's taken the moral leadership of his position to the people. The everyday regular Catholics, 1.4 billion around the globe, who sit in pews every Sunday and hear a priest sermonize, this is what they are going to hear. From now on, every single sermon from every single priest in every single parish worldwide will address one topic and one topic only. The economic structures everywhere are incompatible with human dignity, and they will be specific about the companies, the names of the CEOs and the owners, the donors, and the explicit details of the offenses of these rich people that create inequity, suffering, poverty, homelessness, all the social ills to which all but the smallest fraction of the top 1% are victim. This is the first time a pope has really significantly wielded the cudgel of his true power, moral authority. So this got, as you can imagine, an immediate reaction. He let loose the dogs of the law. He didn't, but you know, the officials did. The lawyers were released into the public to try to put a lid on this. 3 of the rich guys immediately tried to make an appointment for a private meeting with the Pope. They got no response. Not a no, I won't meet with you. Not a sure, come on over and try to talk me into it. Try to negotiate me out of this. No reaction at all. 2 others gave sudden, huge, conspicuous donations to Roman Catholic charities. So you can't negotiate the Pope out of it. And now you're not going to be able to bribe the Pope out of it. One released an ode to the Pope's commitment to dialogue and expressed desire to work on shared goals of human flourishing. You can't flatter the Pope out of it. And one has been accused by a leaker of saying privately, Pope Leo was the most dangerous man alive. You can't threaten the Pope out of it. And why is the Pope dangerous? Dangerous, who's he a threat to? He's a moral threat. He can't be bought. He can't be negotiated. He can't be threatened. He can't be flattered. He's backed by an infrastructure they can't undo. I mean, where do you start picking apart the Catholic Church? Their algorithms of these rich people, they have no solution. Their money means nothing to this particular Pope. And there have been plenty of corrupt popes in the past. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I should do a whole history of the popes, because that's like a soap opera. Not this Pope. The Pope didn't sneak up on these rich people. He let it be known. His very first encyclical in September was specific. It was loud and shouting, without shouting, actually. It was loud. It was precise. He called out, for example, naming it, systemic extraction. This is the deliberate movement of value from the many to the few. This is when they consolidate. Hedge funds buy things, they put it together, they take the money and run. He talked about the function of global economies and how they do this. He called out 3 specific economic mechanisms that are common in capitalism: stock buyback programs, carried interest tax treatment, I don't know what that means, offshore profit shifting. Now, we've heard these terms, and if you're like me, you just sort of, ignore them because it's meaningless. Just want to pay my monthly bills. But if you're rich, these are the little tricks of the trade to be richer. Then the Pope said these tactics of the elite are structurally incompatible with the Gospels. So let me give you an example. There is a family in Oklahoma that owns a gigantic nationwide string of stores. They have heavily lobbied for the Supreme Court to come down with the ruling that businesses don't have to pay for birth control for their employees. I hope this is ringing a bell. This particular family has been known to steal ancient artifacts for their pseudo-cultural projects. I'm trying not to use names. And yet they profess to be very, very, very Christian. Well, the Pope is telling them, you can call yourself whatever you want. By your actions, we know you. So the recipients of these letters were not the only ones. This letter that went out, we're not the only ones who took notice. Senior Catholic clergy and wealthy dioceses who cultivate major donors, they've been notable in their silence. A lot of them are like, oh God, ka-ching is disappearing. A few responded favorably. For example, 2 American Midwest bishops offered their enthusiastic support, talked about it immediately that Sunday from the pulpit like they were supposed to. I mean, if you buy into the institution, you're supposed to cooperate with it. A cardinal in Manila took it to his pulpit immediately. The National Bishops' Conference of Brazil declared that liberation theology is not dead, that the Pope's letter is a prophetic continuation. The icing on the cake, and this just gets better and better, the day this particular letter went out to 10 billionaires and trillionaires, it was diplomatic, but a similar letter went to the heads of the G7 countries, and telling them basically the same thing. You continue to perpetuate this system of greed and lack of compassion, you are guilty of a moral wrong. And then a third letter, of which the contents are yet to have been revealed, communicated to the institutional investors with significant holdings in the companies named. He reached out to the laity, the people who are not clergy, who have big money, who donate to get legislation, to put pressure on society to continue with laws that allow them to do this gigantic con. So obviously the message is that continuing association with these companies that you're donating your money to, and help keep the companies doing the bad things that they're doing economically to the world, this has a huge moral cost for you personally. You. Pope Leo is waging a very smart, coordinated campaign. He's putting precise institutional pressure on the money. So who's going to make the next move? Will the rich guys decide that silence is the wisest recourse, or are they going to publicly confront the Vatican? That's more risky for them. We could picture a lashing out at the Pope for attacking free enterprise. Oh, God help us, free enterprise, right? And for weaponizing religion. But that seems hypocritical coming from people who weaponize their religion constantly, as in the family with the nationwide stores who advocate for legislation. They put the pressure on with their big money. Would top clergy go along with this? Would they retaliate? Would donors pull out? Or will Pope Leo prevail as the public sees the reaction for what it is? They're trying to keep it quiet. But if we look at how these rich people and the donors and anybody who profits even peripherally from this, how they react, how they're pushing back, how upset they are. The wealthy cling to their riches. They can never have enough. It's a pathology. They don't care for the hoi polloi. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They care about their bank accounts. And they're very uncomfortable with public exposure or censure. They prefer to be like Scrooge McDuck, sitting alone on their piles of gold, counting it. It's a pathology. It's absolutely a pathology. And as such, many of them are calculating enough to donate what seems like huge amounts to most of us. But a deeper investigation reveals that this giving is carefully curated as a tax write-off and good PR. Sam Bankman, that name ought to ring a bell, he admitted to Vox, he did an interview, and he told them, look, all this charitable giving on the part of the rich, this is performative. He said that out loud. It's to bolster the image of the person or the company. It's a strategy of what they call, they even have a name for it, effective altruism. They're assuming the persona of the philanthropic billionaire. I have mentioned this so many times, and people get really mad at me when I say this. I'm not going to name names, but there are some famous foundations that actually profit from their philanthropy. A number of billionaires have created strategic structures for giving that assures the maintenance of a particular lifestyle until their death. They may come out and say, oh, by the time I'm dead, I will have whittled away my money to give it to, well, it's like Constantine, the Emperor Constantine, who converted to Christianity on his deathbed. So some have professed that they're not fans of philanthropy. There are some big ones, big names, which I won't mention, but they have come out publicly and said, philanthropy is overrated. Why should we give handouts? to the losers of the world. Is their words, not mine. So going through the list of notable names with extreme wealth, the average donation that they make from their wealth, we all think, oh, well, hundreds of millions of dollars. These people are billionaires. Their average donation is about between 1 and 4.99% of their wealth. Their staggering wealth outpaces any charity they donate. Their money makes money, so they can give, but they're receiving twofold from their own money, making money. So I recently had a lot to say about a certain famous rich person's nuptials, and I was accused of being jealous. I had to laugh. So let's look at that. Let's talk about that. Not because I'm jealous and I don't like to be called out. Now, let's talk about that because I do think that we put much energy and effort into admiring and holding up these people, and we're being bamboozled in a gigantic way. So jealousy is defined as a painful emotion that arises when you perceive a threat to a valued relationship or a threat to an advantage that you have. So that wouldn't apply at all. But really, I think what they mean is envious. Jealousy is not envy. Envy may have been the deadly sin that this particular commenter meant. Envy is the desire for what somebody else has. So given that definition, criticism of the wealthy would seem to spring from wanting to have their stuff or their lifestyle or whatever. But the assumption here is that we all aspire to material things. For many people, money, power, fame, the assumption, the erroneous assumption that money will buy you freedom from worry. These are aspirational life goals. And I did a book a while back, I forget the name of it, about the economics of the rich and the lifestyles that money supports. And these people really spend enormous amounts of time tied up in knots, worried about protecting their money and getting more money. So do we talk about this because we're envious of them? Well, I would love to not have to think about where the money for something is coming. I mean, it would be a lie to say that those thoughts don't cross your mind. If I had a spare $1 million, things would be easier. Yes, indeed. But it does depend on where your core values lie. So I never thought I would say this in my lifetime, but I actually share this particular set of values with this pup. And all people deserve to have their needs met. Let's really talk about what is the core question here. What are our values? And it should be that everybody has his or her needs met. Comfortable shelter, decent food, adequate health care, educational freedom. Education should not be a commodity. Freedom from want, freedom from conflict. These are all the rights of every individual. And I don't know, maybe it's Catholic guilt, but I don't feel completely free of care when I can look out the window and see somebody sleeping on the sidewalk. And I'm not like some saint or something. I just have what I would consider a normal amount of compassion for my fellow human being. And blocking off traffic in a main metropolitan area millions of people are inconvenienced, turning a blind eye to the suffering of people on the streets in order to celebrate one's self seems like a foreign concept to me. And I talked about the marriage of the son of the wealthiest man in the world who lives in India. Well, maybe he's no longer the wealthiest man, but the wealthiest man in Asia anyway. About a year and a half ago, it was obscenity, just obscenity. So there is enough, there are enough resources on this earth for all of the things that we want, this freedom, comfort, safety, healthcare, education, all of it to be possible, if only a few people weren't greedy, morally bankrupt, and pathologically without empathy. Attachment to the material world, the love of money, is the root of all evil. It truly is. It's a focus on oneself, and it's a focus on, in the Western world, it's the main focus. It's lauded, it's praised, it's extolled, it's pushed forward, it's aspirational. Western nations who profess Christian values, Christian roots, Christian mores, also, out of the other side of their face, talk about how Jesus wants us to be rich. So it should be noted that extreme wealth unmoors a person from identifying with loyalty to any one country or any one ideology. If you're that supremely wealthy, you no longer identify as a European or an American or whatever. You identify as a rich person protecting your richness. The ultra wealthy have no allegiance to anything but their money. They may be convinced of their intelligence, their superior intelligence, or their superior genetics, which is just, or their cultural superiority. But identification and attachment to things of the world are all about ego. Well, what did the Buddha have to say about ego? Yes, not just the Catholics. Ego holds us back from spiritual evolution. So what we need to really be focusing on, we remark on these things, we see these things, and I think we do it in the context of the larger suffering in the world. It's not from envy, it's from sorrow that this sort of egregious display goes on while 40% of American children are food insecure. Look it up. We aren't here to be rich. We're not in this incarnation to make that our goal. We're not here to be powerful in the material world or to feel superior to anybody. We're here to grow in compassion and solidarity with our fellow humans, all of them, even the ones we don't like. So the Pope has it right. It kills me to say that. The Pope has it right. The Pope has the courage of his convictions. So this time, about this issue, I agree with him. About everything. Pursuing spiritual wisdom is the most valuable aspiration. And the people that we need to be envious of are the ones who really understand that and who live it. So, yeah, I am envious. I'm envious of the moral integrity of this Pope. Now, if he disappoints me, man, this is going to be bad. Okay, that's all I have to say. And I feel like I'm on my pulpit, and I don't mean to sound that way. I'm the farthest thing from, any kind of moral compass for anybody. But this to me seems really clear. And these 3 letters to the heads of these big businesses, the wealthy, to the G7 leaders, I wish I could be a fly on the wall to that one, and to the donor class. They've all been put on warning. Let's see their move. Let's see what they do next. That's it. Thank you very much for watching. Slán go fóill, slánte.